What's up guys, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus. We are back here today doing more championship score predictions. We made it to week 13. As always guys, make sure you do leave your score predictions in the comments down below if you guys want to get involved. But I also like hearing and seeing all of your opinions as well, so do feel free guys to get involved in the comments. Every comment really does help the growth of this channel, alongside with liking, subscribing and sharing the channel as well. All three of these things are free to do and they really help the growth of this channel. Had a crazy weekend last weekend and I think this one's going to be no different. But without any further ado, let's start predicting week 13 for the championship. Starting with tomorrow's game, we've got Luton going up against West Brom. Two teams at the opposite ends of the table. Certainly both would have been underperforming potentially. Probably not as much with West Brom's point of view with the struggles they've had off the pitch. But Luton Town has certainly been up there for one of the most underperforming sides in terms of their expectations, being a recently relegated side for the Premier League and ending up in the bottom three. I do think with their results, they have been a little bit unfortunate with some games. And what I will say, I think Luton's performances have improved with Adebayo actually working alongside Morris now. The fact that they're both fully recovered and looking quite fit now, I think that's going to eventually bring more consistent results on the table for Luton Town. They're just not bringing that consistency when it comes to conceding goals. They're actually leaking quite a fair few goals. They leaked 3, for instance, against Coventry, so they ultimately really need to work on their defence. West Brom, they've really been dry of goals, so quite the antithesis really. They've only had 1 goal actually scored in their last 5 games. And because of that, they're actually winless in their last 5. So West Brom have got to do a lot to try and get back up in their form. But as a prediction, I've got a very sneaky feeling that if Luton are going to play as well as they did at home against Sunderland, which actually, despite losing, I thought they put in a good performance down, I actually think they can get something here. As a prediction, I'm going to go 2-1 Luton. Maybe a bit out there and a bit bold, but I can easily see it happening. Let me know what you think, guys, in the comments down below. First one of the early Saturday games I'm going to predict is Blackburn going up against Sheffield United, a game which I think it will actually be a little bit difficult to call, actually. Both these sides fighting towards the top part of the championship as it stands. Sheffield United had a bit of a stumble with back-to-back defeats and pretty disappointing performances on their part, but back at Bramall Lane, they were back at their best, bringing back their win actually, and because of that they are now fully competing back within that top 6 again. Blackburn fell to a defeat against Watford, a narrow defeat in the end, but it was a defeat which did cost them actually. Watford, who were catching up with them now. Watford have really closed the gap on them there. They could have really got some, distance regarding the chasing teams of the top 6, but it's a bit of a missed opportunity here. We are then going into this game where Blackburn still have got actually one of the most impressive home forms in the league. They dropped their first couple of points actually against West Brom, which was their last home game that they played. But here, this is going to be really tough. Sheffield United away from home. Based on their last 2 performances, haven't been too impressive, but as a prediction, I think they might cancel each other out. I'm going to say a 1-1 draw. I don't think Blackburn have been scoring as consistently. Sheffield United, I think, are going to struggle to create chances, knowing how well Blackburn can set out defensively, especially at home. But I think as a whole, I can't really see either team edging it. So I'm going to go for a draw. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments down below. Next up, we've got Watford going up against Swansea. 2 winless sides in their last 5 games going up against each other here. Is one of those sides going to break their winless form? Quite possibly, but talking about how they've performed quite recently, Oxford as a side have always been rather impressive. They have been able to score goals. They've had no problems with that. I think they've just fallen short in a couple of games. Their last game against Sunderland, though, I think Sunderland are proving to be the team to beat so far this season. And it was really going to be difficult, especially with their away form being as poor as it was. It's their home form which I'm paying more attention to. And when I see them picking up results against West Brom, for instance, really good results, I do think Oxford are going to be a side that's going to be very, very difficult to get a result from their ground. Swansea are really concerning me. They've not scored in 5 games, and right now they have scored actually the less goals in the league, with only 8 goals scored in 12 games. So a lack of goals is a real concern for Swansea at the moment, and if they do not find the ball in the back of the net for a longer period, ultimately players up front are going to be less confident, and ultimately they're going to slowly but surely sleepwalk into the bottom part of the table. As a prediction, whilst both of these sides have actually gone through a long winless period, I think with Oxford being at home and how capable they are of scoring their goals, I think they might get a result here. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Oxford. Let me know what you think, however, of this in the comments down below. Next up, we've got Stoke going up against Derby County. Both of these sides operating around the middle part of the table, but there is a little bit more of a cause of concern for Stoke City at this moment in time, because I believe they are winners in their last 4 games. And right now, I think likewise with Swansea, they are not necessarily finding goals that easy to come by, and because of that they are slowly but surely sleepwalking around that bottom part of the table. I generally think we will see teams below Stoke picking up points, and potentially 3 points this weekend. So the pressure really is on to make sure that they keep themselves above the red dotted line, which ultimately does get closer and closer the longer you do have a winless period within the Championship. Derby County have been doing relatively well to keep a stable set of results. They're actually unbeaten in their last 4 games. But in their last 3 games, their games have ended in a 1-1 draw. And all these games could have really swung either way, but have ultimately just ended with both teams sharing the evens. And honestly here, I could see a very, very similar outcome happening here. I think Stoke had looked pretty good at home. I remember when they did play against Bristol City, they looked really, really good. But then second half, they capitulated a little bit. Could we see something here where Stoke take the lead, they play really well first half, and Derby go back into it? As a prediction, I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw again. So this will be the 4th 1-1 draw in a row for Derby. But I just have a sneaky feeling that they'll cancel each other out. And if it's going to be a draw, I'm going to go for a 1-1er. Let me know what you think, guys, though, in the comments down below. Next up, we've got Cardiff City going up against Norwich City. So both of these sides doing okay, actually, in their last couple of games or so. Cardiff recently were held to a draw against West Brom, but before then, at home, they picked up brilliant results to beat Plymouth the way that they did, and then follow that up beating Portsmouth as well. 2 teams that were around Cardiff, and still are, to be fair, because whilst Cardiff have been doing well to pick up the points they have been doing in the last 4 games, because of their really, really bad start to the season, they're not really clear of that danger zone yet. But if they keep this going for about 3 or 4 game weeks, I think Cardiff can see themselves actually projecting themselves in a really safe position. And I'm going to talk about Millwall in a minute, where you go through a really good run of form, suddenly the sort of feeling of your season changes. And I think Cardiff will get that if they can continue going on their merry way with their results. Norwich, well, I watched Norwich last week against Middlesbrough live on the channel, and it was a roller coaster of a game. But what really was evident is that Johannes Frollo is now starting to learn the strengths of his side. And I'm telling you, when Middlesbrough missed the opportunity to make it 4-1, and then those substitutes came on in the second half, the game completely switched, and all of a sudden Norwich was so dominant against Middlesbrough for that period, and ultimately they earned that equaliser because they just kept pushing, and they eventually gained their confidence, and just whatever Frollo did in those substitutions changed anything. They looked a bit re-energized, actually. So I do see the really good options that Norwich have, which is why I think they're doing really well this season. Cardiff certainly will be a tough team to break down, though, because they have been doing really well for a good period of time. But as a prediction, I'm going to go for a draw again. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I mean, Norwich have been involved with a 2-2 draw at Preston, and of course a 3-3 draw against Middlesbrough quite recently. So whilst Norwich are scoring loads, they're also conceding quite a fair bit as well. And I think we will get something similar here. Let me know what you think, however, in the comments down below. Next up, we've got Hull going up against Portsmouth. Hull have been slowly but surely improving their form, and I'm really pleased for them for how they have managed to improve it, and a good recent result for them for getting that draw against Burnley as well. So I do think Hull are slowly but surely starting to gain the consistency that they need to actually maintain a comfortable position in the league. But the impetus here is on Portsmouth. They are still bottom of the table. And their last game against Sheffield Wednesday, when they took the lead, I thought this could be the game that turns their season for the better. But in the second half, they've let it slip. I mean, I have to give credit to Michael Smith. What a goal he scored. But ultimately, it was a sucker punch for Portsmouth because it was a big opportunity to let 3 points go down to 0. And that would have really changed things regarding the bottom 3 as well. And right now, I don't think Portsmouth are really going to get a bigger chance than their next couple of games because they've had that horrendous start, of course, playing some really tough sides. Now, ultimately, because they played those sides, they're now going to have a run of seemingly more forgiving games. And I've got to say, Portsmouth have not really capitalised on that so far. So I do have my concerns for Portsmouth that they are conceding way too many chances and just not being clinical enough here. As a prediction, I think we're going to see a similar scenario where Portsmouth are spirited, but I don't think they convert enough. And as a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Hull. I think Hull could have some fun with the way that they play, especially if they let Portsmouth get on the ball. They're actually quite good on transition, so I think we'll see a bit of that. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments down below. Next up, we've got Leeds going up against Plymouth Argyle. Plymouth were involved very recently, of course, with that 3-3 draw against Preston. I mean, it was a bit of a roller coaster of a game, but fair play to them. Plymouth have been involved with some late drama this season at home park. But their away form has certainly been a different story for the worst. And Leeds have certainly started to really turn the screw with their season. I think they are scoring a lot more frequently. They are actually having a much better balanced defence as well. And ultimately, because of that, I think the fact that Leeds are improving game on game and Plymouth have not quite cracked what to do away from home yet, I do think we will see Leeds picking up all 3 points here as the most likely outcome. As a prediction, though, I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Leeds. I mean, it could be any scoreline, to be honest, but I'm going to play a little bit safe, and I'm going to go for a clean sheet and a 2-goal advantage. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments down below. Next up, we've got Middlesbrough going up against Coventry. I mean, I don't know how to sum up Middlesbrough in the last time I saw them against Norwich, because I was really singing their praises in the first half where they actually took their chances, had a 2-goal advantage against a Norwich side who had stayed unbeaten at home for, I think, 14 home games in a row. And they looked like that they were really going to trounce that record. But then second half, obviously, a bit of a misfortune of Conway missing the penalty for his hat-trick. And then the substitutes came in, and psychologically, it changed a lot. And I'm seeing how people are frustrated for them not picking as many points as they have done, because the chances they had in the first half, I mean, they took most of them, but they could have even scored more than those 3. And in the second half, it was quite the contrast. It was like a good period of the game, they lost control when an opposing manager made substitutions, and it's almost like one setback really drains the side. So I don't know whether that's a bit of game management that Michael Carrick needs to try and work on, but it did spark a little bit of a concern that it went from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in pretty, simple circumstances. Coventry managed to pick up a win last game against Luton Town, a crucial result. Considering they were 2-0 down, what a monumental comeback for Coventry City to get the win as they did. They fought well, they had a man advantage in stoppage time, and they actually made it count and got a goal in the 94th minute, I believe. So I'm really encouraged, but having said that though, I think Middlesbrough at home have been relatively good most of the time this season. Coventry could be quite spirited, but I think Middlesbrough might have a bit too much for them. But as a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Middlesbrough. I think it's going to be very, very close. Wouldn't be surprised if it ends as a draw. But with Middlesbrough being at home, I'm a little bit more confident that they might get a result here. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments down below. Next up, we got Preston going up against Bristol City. Certainly Preston, likewise with the likes of Cardiff, they are now stringing some consistent results, and they're slowly but surely really actually revitalising their season and climbing up the table ever so slightly. Performances have certainly been improved. Preston were one of two EFL sides who recently played in the Carabao Cup. They, of course, played against Arsenal at Deepdale. They did lose out by 3-0, and it was almost to be expected. Unfortunately, Arsenal's squad is just full of depth at the moment, and Arsenal certainly didn't pull a strong team. But ultimately, Preston did have a really, really big test on their hands. Relatively speaking, we could see a couple of changes from that game going into this one against Bristol City, where Bristol City have been drawing quite a lot of games, but Bristol City, alongside with a couple of other sides I previously mentioned, are keeping a really decent unbeaten run at the moment. Because of that, they are looking pretty comfortably in the higher mid-table region of the table. So I do think both of these sides can offer quite a bit, but as a prediction, a draw, I think, is the most likely outcome here. Preston being at home, you'd think, could be the more likely one to get a win here. But Bristol City have been able to find a way. You know, I think of the Stoke game, for instance, where they were dead and buried first half, and second half they switched it back like that, with Naki Wells having the game of his life. So I do see Bristol City being a fighting side, you know, not willing to give up so easily. So as a prediction, I'm going for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that game. So that result will not necessarily do any sides a favour. It will just really keep them there and thereabouts in the table. But I just see that being the more likely outcome, that neither side is going to win this one. Let me know what you think though in the comments down below. Next up, we've got QPR versus Sunderland. Certainly two polar opposite ends regarding the table, but both picked up arguably positive results last weekend. QPR were involved in a 0-0 draw against Burnley. A good point, actually. I do think, were they a little bit fortunate? I think at times, yes. But on the whole, they battled right to the very, very end. And the fact they are desperate for points at the moment, any draw against a side expected to get promoted is a good point to get. Sunderland have stretched a 5-point gap first placed in the table. Reggie Labrie has brought a consistency to the Sunderland side, which I have not seen in any other side in the Championship, which is why Sunderland are so far ahead at the moment. And certainly, I didn't expect Sunderland to be playing as well as they did. I thought we could get a period where they do drop their eye off the ball a little bit, but they've just found a way, and I've been so impressed with a lot of their players. Players that I probably would not have backed to have done as well as they did. So, certainly been the surprise package of the season so far. With a prediction, QPR's home form, as we saw very recently against Coventry, is quite abysmal. And I do think they'll continue here against top of the league as well. I think Sunderland are just going to be too tough for them. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 2-0 away victory to the Black Cats. So I do think it'll be a relatively comfortable win, and they will be charging on still to the top of the table. Let me know what you think though in the comments down below. Our penultimate game sees Sheffield Wednesday going up against Watford. Sheffield Wednesday picked up a crucial result of their last Championship game against Portsmouth. It was a huge game which I think could have had particularly big relegation implications, but that win for Sheffield Wednesday has now given them a really decent cushion from that bottom three. So it was a very crucial win on their parts if they wanted to try and separate themselves from that relegation battle per se. Watford as well also got a very crucial win by a 1-goal scoreline, beating Blackburn Rovers by 1-0. Blackburn were directly above them, and now Watford are in a position now where they've really closed that gap and now knocking on the door to try and get into the top 6 this weekend. Sheffield Wednesday were the only other EFL side representing in the Carabao Cup. They took Brentford to penalties, and it was a real shame. I went for a run actually when they took the penalty shootout, and it was gutting to see Sheffield Wednesday lose out 5-4 on penalties. They have every reason to be proud to take a Premier League side to penalties, of course. When we go to this game though, Hillsborough has certainly been a really difficult place to get 3 points in. Watford on the whole away from home have been very inconsistent. They've either been on it or they've been off it. But I'm going to play a bit of a risk. I'm actually going to go for a Watford rare away win and go for a 2-1 away victory. I just have a sneaky feeling that Watford have been improving in their performances recently, and I do think what we could see here is if Watford score early, I think it's going to be very difficult for Sheffield Wednesday to go back into it. But Sheffield Wednesday, as we can see, have picked up some really good results so far at Hillsborough. So it wouldn't surprise me if it ends in a draw or even a Sheffield Wednesday win. It could really go either way. I think this game has actually been the toughest game for me to predict, actually. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments down below. And our last game to predict is Millwall and Burnley. Millwall have been stringing a pretty consistent run of results at the moment. I think they've had back-to-back wins, and as a result of that, they are actually looking relatively good so far regarding their position in the table. But I am not trying to hide away to the fact that a couple of game weeks ago, there were discussions on Millwall potentially being pulled into the relegation conversation, and I mentioned this point already. You just have a string of positive results and it does change the complexity of your season. The test really comes down to consistency, and that's going to be really tested for Millwall against a Burnley side who are second place in the championship. But having said that, they've only scored 1 goal in 3 games actually, and Burnley have not been too inspiring, if I've got to be brutally honest there. I mean, 4 clean sheets in 5, happy days, but ultimately, if you're going to keep clean sheets, there's that risk that you're just not scoring enough. And for the last 3 games, they've just not scored enough. They've had 2 draws, which I think certainly shouldn't have been draws in the first place. And I just think Burnley are falling very short for what they should be with the talent they got in that squad. Mill can certainly give them one hell of a game. They have been doing really well recently, Mill, especially at the Den. As a prediction, you know what? I'm going to go for a draw. I don't have the bravery to back Mill, to be quite honest, and I don't know if Burnley will turn their form around. So therefore, I'm going to go for a safe draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments down below. So just like that, guys, that is my score predictions for week 13. To repeat, make sure you do leave your predictions in the comments down below if you guys want to be involved in the Lexalexus Football Prediction League. But also feel free to leave some comments in the comments down below, just expressing your thoughts of the championship season so far and what you think going into this weekend. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you guys soon.